But I want to come back to the grid and what power availability and the challenges with that, particularly given the closure of Indian Point and the constraints on the grid in the state of New York. Tell me what the reaction to your report has been. Has the New York Times covered this? Have New York Post? Have you gotten any? You've done the deep dive into the numbers to say, well, here's what in fact the state's own data shows. What kind of traction have you had in the press in terms of exposing the real cost of this type of I call it what it is, radical climate action? What's been the immediate uptake?
I've had a number of journalists say they need time to read it
Uh-huh.
because they know there's a lot there. The Empire Center has a really strong reputation in New York for going deep on issues people don't understand and pulling them up. I'd say every 3 years we do a really solid dive into a far-reaching but hard to understand subject in healthcare and tax and labor. And this is our triennial dive into New York public policy. I had the New York Post editorial page called it a damning report, which I took as high praise because I was trying to sound the alarm about the fact that there are parts of the state's policy, and we could talk about this later, where they say essentially 1 + 1 = 3,
Right.
and you need 1 + 1 to equal 2 to keep the lights on. Probably the scariest thing for me right now it's not even the cost, it's not even the threat to reliability, it's the uncertainty. It's that the
Mm.
state has been willing to charge ahead so hard, so fast, that you've got a lot of people in the private sector saying, I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't, they're eventually going to have to change their approach. If they do it in 2025, okay, we can work with that. If they don't do it until 2029, when I've either had to cancel plans or to radically change plans or spend a ton on compliance that my competitors aren't necessarily going to be, where my competitors aren't necessarily going to be held to that, you've put this real chill on the state economy. And you talk about the big projects that are coming in. They're the big projects that are coming in because New York is paying them to.
Right.
New York is not ground zero for organic business development right now simply because it has a business climate problem. And it's not just taxes. A really big part of it is energy. It's people wondering what are electricity costs going to be 10 years from now when the state has forced the closure, and not necessarily deliberately, but in some cases inadvertently forced the closure of a bunch of power plants.